And this is why in SETU, the regulatory lens is so important, because it tells all of you, they look down, all of you. If it didn't do it like this, you're supposed to do it like this. You're supposed to account for it like this. You're supposed to report it as this. So now with SETU, we get not only how they account for things with the classic examples, we get how they're supposed to account for. So now that we know that there's a difference between how they account for these items and how they're supposed to account for these items, now we get to figuring out why they don't account for these items the correct way. And once we figure out, like we've been doing, why they don't do it, now we understand where their exposure lies.
They told you this was just a loan, but they never showed you the full transaction. While you're looking at a contract, they're reporting assets, liabilities, and net positions on balance sheets. This is where most people get it wrong. They look at one lens and think they understand the deal. SETU teaches 5 lenses of the consumer contract: court, regulatory, corporate finance, investor, consumer. Because in the real world, these transactions don't stop at the contract. When receivables are transferred into trust, it's not about what it looks like. What you see and what they report are not the same. As a courtesy, we invite you for a sneak peek inside the highly popular Supreme Elite Team University, brought to you by the New Culture Empire.
Now, week 1 is a fair value overview. This is what the corporate professionals want to keep in-house only. These measurements in this section is not anything that you are going to find outside of that world, to be honest with you, because all these depict on how they account for these things internally. There's a difference between how they account for these things internally and what they present or submit to the SEC. They submit these things to the SEC. They're pretty much unaudited. And the way you kind of get the leg up on them is you kind of got to read what they and what we study, what they submit to the SEC, and continue to go over prior years to see the consistency. Because if they consistently do something a certain way, then there's a chance that they're doing it the same way with you. And this is why, like in my lawsuit, I said I went through 5 years of their balance sheets and they've been consistent. So it's either my contract was the only one out of hundreds of thousands that they decided not to, or is mine part of the same thing? You know what I'm saying? So that's how you find this is why you go back, not just 2025, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20. Central question. Every financial instrument has 2 simultaneous realities. Now, the question is, what are those realities? And they're going on at the same time. One singular contract. And we're going to compartmentalize this just to the consumer and corporate side, and not so much of the court, SEC, and investor side yet. So in this moment, you got 2 transactions going on at the same time. You got the consumer side, which presented to us. Then we got the corporate side, how they're really looking at this. And that is the contractual balance, the legally enforceable scheduled amount, and then you have the economic value, the market-based measurement of expected cash flow. That's why receivables so powerful in this world. It's the receivables. Now, they are not the same. They serve different purposes, but by God, they are both real. Understanding that difference is the foundation of financial literacy at a professional level. Courts enforce contracts based on legal terms. Accountants measure contracts based on economic substance. And regulators supervise institutions based on risk values. Investors price instruments based on expected performance, and markets never price at fair face value without risk adjustment. That's the allowance for credit laws. That's the deteriorations. That's what that is. So they're going to book them at the fair value with the allowance for credit laws on the back end. economic value leads to confusion in securitization analysis, which y'all see all day, every day. Impairment modeling, that very few people really understands with accounting standpoint. Credit loss recognition, fair value disclosure, litigation strategy, and settlement valuation. And this week is going to build that foundation. And when I mean this week, that means this week going into the next week. Now, one of the core concepts of this is the contractual balance reflects the amounts financed, the finance charge, total of payments, payment schedules, legal remedies upon default. That's totally on the consumer side, and that is very real. I don't want you to think that that's not what they can do. They very well can do that, and then many times it's going to be upheld in court. Now, from the credit acceptance contract example, you have the amounts financed at $22,728. You have the finance charge of $18,386.90. You got the total of payments of $41,115.36 and a total sales price of $43,815.36. But you will notice, and I'll explain to y'all during next week, is when credit acceptance actually removed my balance, you notice they never removed the $43,815.36. They actually only removed $19,000, the principal balance remaining. So where would the extra, 25, 26, 27,000 go? Where did that go? Because when they removed the balance, when they showed the waived, it was only the 19,000. That was the principal left. But we have 43,000 here. Because that extra 25 to 27,000 was just all extra. That's all it was to them. So there was nothing for them to actually remove because they never got it yet. Y'all get what I'm saying? But it shows up on the contract. So this allows them to enforce this amount. But behind the scenes, that amount right there is all extra. It's not actually accounted for as part of the obligation. They measure the total economic value based on that amount. But that's not the amount that they actually saying you're going to get this. And this is why they have pools. Because everybody's going to help each other cover each other's debt based on those securities that they're issuing. Yeah, you're starting to understand why the whole 43,000 wasn't removed, but only the principal remaining balance of 19 was removed. This is how accounting works. Now, this represents the legal structure of the obligation, and it is enforceable, but it's not necessarily the economic value of the receivable on a financial statement. And this is why it showed only 19,000 removed instead of the 43,000. Now, that measures the discounted value of expected future cash flows. The key elements: the time value of money, credit risk, expected default probability, recovery assumptions, discount rate. If I were buying this receivable today, what would I pay for? That answer is almost never the total contractual payments. And I'm going to keep saying it so you won't have the perception that they're trading these based on the 43,815. I mean, some of you all investors, some of y'all invested, crypto's kind of the same thing. Why would I pay 43,000 just to get 43,000? You get what I'm saying? It's always going to be discount because it makes no economic sense. No rookie investor, and this is why when it hits the secondary market, all these things are discounted. Now, value is defined at the price that would be received to sell an asset or paid to transfer a liability in an orderly transaction between market participants. This is an exit price concept. It is market-based and it is risk adjustment. It is not the face value of the contract. Now, the application across systems. In the consumer context, the borrower sees your total of payments, your monthly obligation, and the contract interest rate. The lender's accounting department sees net receivable, allowance for credit loss, present value measurement, and the yield. How much are we making after we pay interest on these? Now, one contract, I'm going to highlight it again. One contract looked at from two different angles. This is the consumer and the corporate finance view of this contract.
and the
Best. No, I couldn't let them get me caught in front of the house inside Mercedes Benz GLE, but something wasn't right. I had to do it right. Yeah. Sent the email with the proof, then I filed a suit. Yeah, judge saw the evidence, then they called the truth. Just like that, gone. They settled quick, title on the way, and the debt was wiped away, and I ain't even had to. Came on reading numbers, they were reading memes. He was reading filings, planning out the dream. Turn every late fee into case law heat. Judge bang gavel, he don't skip a beat. They like how you flip stress into assets, how you turn a loss into last check. Thomas took notes, broke codes, then he proved it. Now the classroom global and the language fluid. Thomas is a blueprint. Write that in the sky, let the crew print. From the courtroom smoke to the new man. He designed the way we move our 2 cents. Thomas is a blueprint. Supreme Elite team, that's the school stamp. From the first lay bill to the full camp. New culture empire, watch the flag plan. Supreme Elite Team University. Turn the credit score into currency. Turn the closed door to a first key.